Another gun-related story caught our eye in the Times today. An executive at a California company now selling so-called smart guns. Users wear a coded watch that transmits a signal to the gun, so the gun can only be fired by one user. More gun safety makes for better gun owners, fewer incidents where guns fall into the wrong hands. It's a win-win, right? The reaction of gun enthusiasts? They posted her telephone number online that led to nasty voicemail messages and heavy breathing on the other end, and even took photos of where her P.O. box is and hinted they had a photo of her there too. Meanwhile, her business is now in a shambles. The gun range that's going to distribute the guns, or where she was going to do business, has now disowned the company. That sort of bullying, intimidation, and tacit threatening is actually par for the course in the gun debate. Gun control advocates, including some Newtown families, have been threatened. A member of our staff who worked for a newspaper that published a gun registry has dealt with it. It's even there in the Cliven Bundy mess in Nevada. You know the story of the rancher squaring off against the federal government over grazing fees? Well, then the gun bat signal went out and wham, gun groupies armed to the teeth showed up, ready to fight and be fought. And there was okay, so that's the scene in Nevada there, including one of these gun lovers who was like, "We're going to put the women up front, so that if we had a standoff with the federal government, it would be the women who would be getting shot first." Here's my question: the gun debate is a serious debate, and we have it on the show all the time. If it's really all about protecting the rights of gun owners, why these threats, and why do the gun supporters tend to go there so fast with, and I'm sorry, Congressman, a lot of people in your party not putting them in their place or telling them that that's not the approach to have on this debate?
If people want to buy these guns, they should be able to. If people want to sell them, but you shouldn't pass a law that says these are the only guns you can use. And the problem is the gun enthusiasts always think this is the camel's head under the tent. And you can never legislate based on camel's head under the tent. So I ignored a little bit of your question, but I answered part of it.
But I'll ask the part that you ignored again. The tacit threat or threats or intimidation that often comes in these cases.
This is the dark side of the NRA and gun enthusiasts. They go too far, and they almost give reason why people want to have more sensible gun law.
There was actually some movement in favor or positive NRA movement in Wisconsin. They passed a law forcing people who are facing protection orders in domestic cases to hand over their weapons. The law was actually approved with the NRA help, and the article went on that in the past year the NRA has quietly scaled back some of its campaigns against domestic violence laws, but still they wanted a few changes. One of the changes being, well, if you're going to turn over your guns, you should also be able to turn them over to a friend or a family member and not just the government instead. And keep in mind that the NRA still doesn't want to allow background checks that would let you find out if you've got an order of protection on you when you're buying a gun in the first place. Are we seeing any sort of change? Do you feel like
one of the problems is the gun control enthusiasts do things like publish who owns guns, which just makes gun owners say, see, you're making us targets. And so, yes, you want the government to know, but do you want the whole world to know?
Is there any movement on this coming whatsoever? It's not. It's just we're nowhere with it.
In terms of getting legislation at the federal level, I don't think so. We've seen, changes at the state level, but we should say this is becoming a big issue, or has been a big issue in New York State in the gubernatorial race, where we see, Palladino, Trump, Astorino using the SAFE Act in terms of the rallies that are being held, and it does appeal to constituents in at least upstate, and we also see the list being sent out as part of their fundraising. So it's become an issue in New York State and at all the local levels, but I don't see any federal legislation in the offing. But I would just say one thing about the tactics that are being used. That is not just tactics that are used by, people who oppose gun control. Animal rights activists use similar tactics. I mean, these are tactics of people who believe in an issue and they take it to an extreme, but it's not just on one side.
That's a fair point. We asked this as one of our mailbag questions for folks on Facebook and Twitter last week. I want to read a couple of your responses. Rose Rowland wrote in that gun owners should be forced to carry up to $1 million minimum in liability insurance. Gun must be secured in locked safes. Gun owners should be held liable from injuries caused by their guns. All gun owners should be required to have gun locks on their guns if they live at home with children under the age of 16.
Andrew, you're not going to see federal law because Democrats, when we had gun control in '93, lost 19 very seasoned veterans. So neither side wants federal legislation.
Just quickly back to our mailbag, Pam Dudoff was talking about kids and how frequently young kids and children accidentally shoot other kids and people who don't secure their weapons. She says must be held accountable for being irresponsible and endangering children. From the other side, we heard from Paul McQuillan, guns don't kill people, people with guns kill people. We've heard that before. And Brent Gallegos, when people stop complaining about this crap, I'll be happy. I'll be happy when we finally get to stop reporting on this crap and come to some sort of sensible legislation. That's my little editorial moment for the night. We're going to wrap up
You're
RFL.
allowed.
Thank you. We're going to wrap up RFL right after this.